What's going on, everybody? It's your boy R.W. Coolins coming at you this Memorial Day. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner. I just want to reach out to everybody and say, happy Memorial Day for those families who lost loved ones with the ultimate sacrifice. We send our prayers and condolences out to you on this Veterans Day, and I just want to come at you today. Speak on it. Speak on the show, and the Just Coolins podcast will be coming back. I've been, kind of busy doing some other things, with this coronavirus going on. A lot of people have things, but like I said, I'm still working, and I got other things going on and trying to secure some things. So, my apologies for not being on in a while, but I'm on the way back. So bear with me. With that being said. Merchandise, I had people asking about t-shirts and everything. Merchandise, I'm waiting on the samples to come in. It's been delayed a little bit because of the coronavirus. It's been kind of delayed as far as the delivery of me getting the samples. So once I get the samples in, then I will be posting those, getting those posted up, and then letting everybody know when you can go and purchase those the t-shirts. Right now we're just going to start off with the t-shirts, and then we'll get into hats and different things like that as we go forward, depending on how much y'all buy. Let's just be real. Depends on how much y'all buy, then we'll take it from there. All right. So as far as the merchandise, that'll be coming soon. But what I want to touch base with you on today is just something that it didn't sit well with my soul, and it's different reasons than you probably would have thought. You ain't black enough, or you ain't black. Let me just put it right there. Everybody knows last week, I think it was Thursday or Friday, Charlamagne Tha God interviewed Joe Biden, and in the interview at the end, he said it in jest that if you don't know if you're gonna vote for him or Trump, then you ain't black. A lot of people were up in arms. A lot of people were upset. A lot of people were mad. A lot of people were saying, that they take the black vote for granted and all these different things, and whatever you can think of was being said was said. Let me give you my perspective on this "you ain't black" phrase or thought process, or however you want to look at it from your view. And I'm going to give it to you from my view. This is not the first time I've heard this said, so it didn't really shock me. Not the first time I've heard it from someone of non-color, didn't really shock me. But what it did, it took me back to a time as a young man, growing up, where because of where we lived, because of how we maybe carried ourselves, or way we talked, or who we had class with, all these different things came into play where we would hear, me, my brothers and sisters would hear, that we weren't black. We were Oreos. But on the other side of that, we would go and play, in the park where we lived at and close to where our house was and everything, and we would hear the N-word. So it was this thing of trying to figure out at a young age where we fit in, because in one aspect we weren't black enough, I guess, and then on the other aspect we were too black, so we got called the N-word. So Oreo, N-word, whichever one you want to do, that's what we dealt with as youngsters. So when I heard this the other day, I laughed, but inside it made my soul unsettled. And then I started listening to the comments and reading the comments on, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, different places like that. So as I'm reading these comments, a lot of things are coming to my mind, and then light bulb went off. And with that light bulb going off, this is what the R.W. Coolins perspective, came into play. And in that light bulb lighting up, what came into play was that this is not a Joe Biden problem. This is not a people of non-color problem. This is a black community problem. And it goes back further than Joe Biden. It goes further than R.W. Coolins. It goes way back to slavery. during the slavery times when you had the field Negro against the house Negro. It goes back to the point where as times were going and we started getting rights where you had the name of the Uncle Toms and the sellouts and all these different things through our history that have come into play. So when I heard it took me back to all those thought processes. And that's why I say this is not a Joe Biden issue. This is not, this is not even a white community issue. This is a black community issue that we've been dealing with for years and years and years, and we're still dealing with it to this day. The only difference was with Joe Biden saying it put exposure on the fact that you have white folks who feel the same way about us as far as us not being black enough because of where we live, how we talk, where you go to school, the president. I mean, let's think about it. When Barack Obama was running, we had people in our own community saying he wasn't black enough to be our black president. So when you analyze it all and think about it, you have to look at the big picture and say, this is a community problem, our community's problem. When we get to the point of telling each other that you're not black enough because of whatever reasoning. I take into account, and I'm going to bring these up. I think about Candace Owens, who's a Republican. I think of Tim Scott, a Republican. I think he's Republican out of South Carolina. I think of Diamond and Silk. I think of Omarosa at the time. I think of the pastor up in Michigan who said Donald Trump was our first pro-black president. I think of these people when we talk about you're not black enough because all these things have been put on them since they became Trump supporters. And who put the label on them about not being black? We did. We're guilty of this. Not Joe Biden. We are. And the reason we're guilty of it is because we're the ones that put the labels out there for him to feel comfortable enough to say it to a black man on a radio show. Because we've been comfortable saying it amongst ourselves for years and years and years and years, that now those folks who are of non-color feel that they can say it freely, just like the N-word. I went there, just like the N-word, that we as a community seem to say is okay to use amongst ourselves, but nobody else can use it, but they still use it. I say all that to say this. Every 4 years we deal with the same issues when it comes to the black vote. Who is going to carry the black vote when it's time to vote? And what happens with that is everyone on both sides of the aisle are trying to minimize the impact of the person on the other side of the aisle to try to gain the black vote. If my people, I'm not saying you people, if my people haven't recognized this by now, we've been walking blindly for years and years and years. We got to get to the point where we hold people accountable, not when they're first running for president, but when they're coming through the ranks. Joe Biden has been a senator for, who knows, 30-something years he was a senator. Did anybody question him then? He was vice president for President Barack Obama. Did anybody question him then? I never heard when he was vice president for President Obama anyone talk about this crime bill that they keep talking about now that he's running for president. I never heard anybody talk about it. Unless I was asleep at the wheel, I never heard anybody talk about it. But now it's a big issue, and he should apologize for it. But he didn't apologize for it when he was running as the VP for President Obama. Why? Because we, as a community, were so overjoyed with the fact that President, at the time, candidate Obama was running to be president of the United States of America, that it didn't matter. It didn't matter who the vice president was. Think about that. Let that marinate in your mind for a minute and think about how much time you spent, vetting Joe Biden as a vice presidential candidate, that you're vetting him now as he becomes a presidential candidate. Mind you, he was VP for 8 years. 8 years under President Barack Obama. But there's more scrutiny on him now to run for president than there was as him being vice president. These are things that we as a black community need to work on from the top of the ballot all the way down. I got my mail-in ballot the other day for Nevada. And on that ballot, you have senators, and representatives. And then I seen this long, drawn-out list of judge positions. Judges. Let's talk about this now. Judges. Family court, all these different courts that they got, they need judges. The people are running for these to be judges. These are the same positions that most of those people sitting at the Supreme Court used to sit in. Those same people that this guy that they got going up, this 33 years old, that they want to try to put him on the D.C. Circuit Court. These are positions that he held at one time. He's only 33 years old, and they're trying to get him lined up to get a seat on the Supreme Court that is a lifetime appointment. We have to pay more attention to the whole ballot, not just the one slot on the ballot. I say that because we got to pay attention. And if we're going to have a so-called black agenda, then this so-called black agenda that we need to have needs to be all inclusive of everyone in the United States, not pockets here and pockets there. It has to be national. It can't be just one person speaking on this part, one person speaking on this part, and we can't have one person trying to speak for all of us when all of us may not have the same concerns that this one person has. That's one of the downfalls of us as a whole. We always rely on one person to be our spokesperson. Why? These are the things we need to work on. These are the things we need to get in more in tune with ourselves, and we need to pay more attention to the political processes before the presidential elections come, and pay attention to all the elections, even at the state level, at the county level. All those positions need to be paid more attention to. Now, I didn't come on here today to preach to you. I came on here to teach. And what I'm teaching you today is this. We got to get better as far as policing our own community and our own selves first before we go outside trying to police somebody else. Because 9 times out of 10, when these things are said in jest, as they say, as in to be a joke, there's some truth to it because it was already within our community and nobody has taken the time to address it. As I always say before I sign, well, let me say this first. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. I'll be back on. I'm trying to get the podcast narrowed down to a specific day, which it looks like it's probably going to be every Wednesday for the Just Coolness podcast. I'll be posting, probably doing it on Wednesday, posting it Wednesday night early. You'll get it probably Thursday morning on the West Coast. And then the Speak on the Show will be coming back on Saturdays, the 2-hour show. I'm just trying to finish out some platform issues as far as being able to play the music and all things like that. So I'm working through those things to give you, a in-depth show and give you some opinions on what's going on and just in-depth conversations about some different things. And I'm trying to line up some conversations with some people so we can sit down and talk about the political process, the education problems, all the different things we got going on, and some medical people so we can talk about this COVID-19 so we can see if this is going to be something that's long-term that's going to affect us and how we as a black community need to be aware of what and how it affects us, because disproportionately we are being affected by this and nobody is really harping on it. We heard about it and then it went away. We got to be better, and we got to do our due diligence to take care of ourselves, because what we know to be true, if we don't take care of ourselves, nobody's going to take care of us but ourselves. And we got to start looking out for each other. And the last thing I'll say on this, the next time you hear anybody say somebody's not black enough, say somebody's Uncle Tom, a sellout, any of those derogatory names of because of where they live, what they do, who they're married to, how they choose to vote, or any of those things, stop them and just address it in this simple phrase like this: I refuse to allow you to talk about my brother or my sister in that manner. We may have different viewpoints, but that's still my brother or my sister. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. I'm your boy, R.W. Coolins. Again, happy Memorial Day, and we send our prayers and thoughts out to those families whose family member